Welcome to this week's episode of I Didn't Sign Up for This. My name is Caitlin Nillis, and I am your host today. Right now, I am recording upstairs in my recording, like shooting, like content, my content room, I guess you could say. Oldest daughter's downstairs. She got pink eye a couple days ago. So she's been home. Today's the second day she's home from school, and she is just living life and loving all the screen time. If you guys, I've talked about this before on Instagram, and if you've been following me for a while, my oldest daughter has a little bit of anxiety, and going to the doctor, going to the dentist, really anything that's outside of her comfort zone is like meltdown city. Like she has a really hard time. She just really struggles. So I got a call from the school yesterday and said that I needed to come pick her up because her eyes were red. Her eyes were a little bit red that morning, but they weren't goopy, and I just didn't really think about it. So anyway, I went and picked her up from school. I had to cancel a bunch of meetings and appointments and an interview with someone for the podcast. I felt horrible. But I went and picked her up. We went to the doctor. You guys, like taking children to the doctor, if you have an anxious child, it is so freaking hard. It's very mentally exhausting, and we just really struggled. So I had to give her all the bribes, even to just get her into the doctor's office. I reassured her a million times over that, like, you're not getting shots, nothing is going to happen. Like, but she didn't even want eye drops in her eyes. And so it was just really tough, but she did pretty good. We went to Five Below. I got her McDonald's, like all was good. We get home. The doctor prescribed eye drops, and she seemed okay with it when the doctor said, we're going to give you some antibiotic eye drops. She seemed okay with it. We picked it up, came home, and it was just such a fight to get her to put the eye drops in. I did one eye, like to get her to do one eye drop or a drop in one eye took a lot of convincing. The pediatrician and a lot of people on Instagram also said this, but like one thing that you can do if your child doesn't like to have eye drops is to have them close their eye, and then you just position dropper like right in the corner of their eye. When they open their eye, then the drop goes in and they blink a few times. So we tried that. She still had a lot of anxiety, didn't want to do it. I got her to do one of her eyes, and she wiped her eye. So I did a second drop, and then that caused her to not trust me, and she would not do her other eye. We're supposed to do the drops 3 times a day in both eyes, and like she will not do it. So one of her eyes, I did the drops in, actually that was the first one that got, why am I even talking about this? Like, I don't think anyone cares. Whatever. Yeah, basically, like she's just home, and I'm hoping that by tomorrow she can go back to school and that her eye clears up, because we can't do the drops. And the doctor did say that it will likely get better on its own, especially because it's not goopy. She's not waking up with like crusties in her eyes or anything like that. So hopefully she's better by tomorrow, because as a working mom, even though I work for myself and I kind of can make my own schedule, I have certain days that are allocated for certain things. Like I have to have deliverables done by a certain time. We have contracts. Like I run a business. I have a podcast. I have a podcast schedule. So like I have things to do, and I do have deadlines, even though I do work for myself. So if I don't get something done on a certain day that is allocated for that, I have to make it up at some point throughout the week or whenever by that deadline, which puts a lot of stress and pressure on me. So yeah, yesterday I had to cancel a bunch of stuff and move it around. Today I also don't have a childcare for my youngest, she's at preschool right now. I'm gonna go pick her up in like an hour. So this is the one thing that I'm doing today, is recording this podcast episode. Outside of that, like I have literally zero expectations for getting anything done. I plan on trying to like clean my house and tidy up if I can, but not really expecting a lot from myself today. Okay, so today's episode, we're going to be talking about Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. I hope you guys aren't sick of me talking about this, because I have talked about it a lot on Instagram. My episode this last week, I had just watched one episode, so I just gave like my initial thoughts, but I want to do all of my thoughts after watching 8 episodes. So there actually are 8 episodes, not 6, like I said in that first or on last week's podcast. So we're going to talk about it. And then also, I'm starting a new segment on the podcast that's called I Didn't Sign Up for This. I'm going to be sharing something that I didn't sign up for this week. And then I'm also going to share some submissions that you guys sent me on Instagram. If you're not following the podcast page on Instagram, go and follow, because I'm going to be doing the little question box only on the podcast page, not on my Honestly Caitlin page. So if you want to participate in that, then go and give me a follow over there. Let's get into it. Initial thoughts on the show. Loved it. Loved every single episode. I watched it in like 2 or 3 days, and I made Cody watch. He watched the first 6 episodes with me. Well, actually, I watched the first episode alone, and then I told him about it. I'm like, will you watch this with me? Go and watch the first episode, and then we can watch the rest together. So then he watched the first episode. We watched the rest of it together. And then I did something so bad. I watched episodes 7 and 8 without him because it was Monday, and like, because the episodes came out on Friday, and then on Monday we still had 2 more episodes, and I'm like, it is my entire TikTok my entire TikTok feed. And I'm like, I have to know what happens these last 2 episodes. Everyone was telling me that the last 2 are the best out of the entire season. And I just felt left out. I was having major FOMO. So I did something that's totally unspeakable, is I watched those 2 last episodes without him while he was at work. I like basically took a day off when my daughter was at preschool. I'm like, okay, I have all these to-dos that I need to do for work, but you know what I'm going to do instead? I'm going to watch Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. So that's what I ended up doing. And he was so mad, which I don't blame him. I would be mad too. But I was like, I'll watch them again with you. Like, I just needed to know for my job. Like, it's part of my job, like as a creator, when I'm talking about these things, and like, I need to know. I couldn't just wait. And like, the way our week was, it's not like we could have watched it that Monday night, because he had something, and then like Tuesday we had, like, the rest of the week we basically had something. And I was like, we won't even be able to watch it until this weekend, and like, I can't go whole week without knowing what happens in those 2 episodes. So he still hasn't watched the last 2 episodes. Random squirrel thought, but The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City starts today, the new season, and I told him he's going to watch that with me. But this one is Real Housewives. It is released 1 episode a week, so I'm like, I won't even have the opportunity to like move forward. So we're going to do that. So first, thoughts on the show. If you're from Utah, or you grew up in Utah, or you've been in Utah for any extended period of time, or you have family that lives in Utah, you will know that the culture is like 100% accurate. There were so many situations that happened throughout the season where I was triggered, and I feel like I was having PTSD from when I was a kid and a teenager, when I was still a part of the church, where I was just like, that is so relatable. And it's sad that the culture is still that way, because I'm not Mormon anymore. Like, I feel like I'm a little bit removed from, the culture and that type of thing. And I've wondered to myself, like, oh, maybe things have changed a little bit. And I do think that they have changed since when I was growing up, but it seems like a lot of things are the same or very similar to from when they were 20 years ago. Okay, so the other thing that I wanted to say about this is that, like, a lot of people will say that the Utah Mormon culture is a lot different from the Mormon culture anywhere outside of Utah. I hear that over and over and over again. I think that's really true. I feel like there is less judgment if you live anywhere else, because the Mormon religion, I mean, the state of Utah, I think, is like 60% Mormon. So we are just a very Mormon state. But outside of Utah, the Mormon religion is a very small percentage of people. So I do feel like it's likely going to be different. People are going to be less judgmental because people live by different standards in different religions, or maybe they're not religious. Whereas because there's so many people who live by the Mormon religion and there are so many rules, I feel like it kind of creates this, how do I want to say this? I kind of feel like because there are a lot of rules and a lot of people are Mormon, it's very easy to judge other people, because it's like, so-and-so is drinking coffee. Like, why are they drinking coffee? They're not supposed to drink coffee. Whereas like, if you live in a different state like California, most people are not Mormons. So you're not going to like look at someone and they're drinking a cup of coffee and like judge them, because you just don't know. So I do feel like the culture is probably much different. But okay, I want to go through each of the each of the castmates. They're not characters, they're real people. Each of the castmates and just kind of share some like initial thoughts on them. So I'm going to start with Taylor because she is obviously the star of the show. I love Taylor. Like from the first episode through the whole season, like you can see her transform into this beautiful, mature person who has done so much work and healing. To see her come out on the other side, I feel like is a very beautiful thing. People make mistakes all the time. I feel like the way that the whole mom talk scandal happened, it didn't really feel fair how she was treated, because people make mistakes and there's just like a whole story there. So anyway, I just love Taylor. I think she's great. I think she's doing all of the right things. I absolutely loved in that first episode when, or maybe, no, it must have been the second episode. I think it was the second episode because her mom, because she was pregnant, or she, like it was before she had her ectopic pregnancy. I can't remember exactly, but like her mom was kind of pushing her to get married to Dakota because in the Mormon religion, you're not supposed to have a baby out of wedlock. And I just loved how she stood her ground and was like, I'm not jumping back into a marriage. It sounded like she got married to her ex-husband really young. They kind of just jumped into it, which is also a very culturally acceptable thing in Mormon religion. And it's actually encouraged after this, like a little side note. But I've heard from many people that after they've gotten off their mission, they have been encouraged to just like get married right away. So that's why you hear a lot of Mormons getting married at like 19, 20, 21. And only dating for, 3 or 4 months before getting engaged and then having a very quick marriage. It's very normal. But I just loved how she stood her ground and she was like, no, mom, like, I'm not going to just get married because I'm having this baby. I want to make sure that it's the right decision and we're doing it for us. Like, I thought that was really cool. And I just gained so much respect for her in that moment. Demi, okay, well, you're going to talk about Demi. So I actually haven't followed Demi before the show. Absolutely love her. Love how outspoken she is and how she just like calls it how it is. I also don't feel like she does it in a way that's disrespectful. I feel like she is very respectful in her approach, but she doesn't deal with bullshit. And I think that's great. And I love her story about getting divorced and, when she's talking to Jen. Also, this has like spoilers, so I'm so sorry. Like, if you haven't watched the show by now, like, get it together because the show came out like a month ago. I'm just kidding, guys. But this does have spoilers. I'm just gonna I'm not holding anything back. But when they're talking to Jen about, I think they're talking to Jen about like getting divorced. Not that Jen's getting divorced, but they're just like, you don't have to be afraid of divorce. Like, divorce doesn't mean your life is over. And and so Demi and then Jesse, also Love, just shared their experience as like divorced women and how it was the best thing for them and for their family. And I thought that was really mature of them. And I just love that part of their story because with divorce does come a lot of shame, and people, I feel like within the church, my parents got divorced when I was 10, and it was really hard on us, like within our religion, because people were gossiping and people were very judgmental. And my mom, her life changed a lot. Like, man, I'm trauma dumping. I am trauma dumping. I won't get into it, but like, you just kind of lose status in the church when you get divorced, or at least that's how it used to be. I can't really speak to how it is now, but a lot of things can change when you get divorced. And so I just really appreciated when they shared their experience and how it was actually a positive thing. And I could really like relate to that. Okay. Jessie, I kind of already talked about her. She's amazing. She's just like so outspoken. The one thing I didn't like, and she's come out on podcasts since the show released, but I didn't like how they were pre-gaming at Zach's parents' house after his graduation party. I felt like that was very disrespectful. As an ex-Mormon myself and someone who drinks alcohol, I would never bring alcohol to my parents' house and drink it, like even in hiding. I just feel like that's very disrespectful. Like, if you're in someone else's home and you know that they don't allow alcohol, or something goes against their religion or beliefs, or even if was like someone like had an alcoholic dad. And so they don't have alcohol in their house. Like for someone to bring alcohol into someone's home when they don't allow it, and it goes against everything they believe in, I feel like that is very disrespectful and just shouldn't happen. I feel like that's very juvenile, like something someone in high school would do. But Jessie did say that she apologized to Jen after the fact and like all is good. I really appreciated that she just like owned up to what, like the situation was like, hey, I shouldn't have done this. This is why. And apparently like the reason why she did it is because they were going out dancing afterwards and like drinks were really expensive at the club. And like, I can appreciate that. But also like you're in someone's home that doesn't drink. They don't believe in drinking. Like they're very Mormon. You can't do that, girl. Like if Zach's parents found out, Jen would be blamed because it's Jen's friend. And like, that's just not a good situation. Michaela. So Michaela, I didn't see, I really like her story about her skin and I want to see more of that in season 2. I also am like, wait, you had a baby when you're 16 and I think her husband was 20 or 21, which is like, I think that's statutory rape. Like, I don't know. Like man, that's not okay. And like, I don't know their whole story. So I just want to know more about their story. But what I think about Michaela, like she seems amazing and like great and like has a mission behind what she's sharing on social media, which I think is amazing. But the first initial thoughts that I have about her and the age gap and how young she was when she got pregnant and then married is like, that's pretty typical in Utah. Not that 16-year-olds are getting married, but it's very typical to get married at 18 or 19 years old. Like you're a baby. And also, like, if you know the history of the church, like there's some questionable things that have happened in the past with like polygamy and women getting married or girls getting married really young and just like quickly procreating. And like, given the times were a lot different back then than they are now, but it's just sad to see that type of thing still happening. And again, I don't know her story. I want to know more about her story, but that whole thing just seems like, I don't know, that just like doesn't sit well with me. Layla, I loved her. I want to see more from her in season 2 as well. But I loved her divorce party. I loved how she looked at it as like a celebration and like a second chapter in her life. I want to talk about something with Layla, like in one of the first episodes, she talks about how she had never orgasmed in her whole marriage and she had 2 children. And this is like another one of those things that I just feel like is very Utah. And again, I can only speak to my own personal experience, like growing up the way that I did and the culture that I did. So maybe this is normal in other religions or whatever, but like this is just like my point of view based on that. But there is so much shame that is surrounded by sex. Like when you go through puberty, like obviously the church, like you're not supposed to have sex outside of wedlock. Oh, that just reminded me of something else. Okay, I'm gonna have to like put a pin in that. Obviously, you're not supposed to have sex outside of marriage. I feel like it's like once you get married, then you're just expected to be like this, in their words, like this porn star and like serve your man's every desire. Sex usually for women in the very beginning is like, it's not just like a cut and dry thing like it is for men. Like there's a lot more that goes into like pleasuring a woman. I hope my dad's not listening to this episode. But yeah, so like with the first time that you have sex, like you get married as a Mormon and then it's like the wedding night, like you don't know what you're doing. Like neither of you know what you're doing because you're both probably virgins, or if not, like you are really young and so you don't really know your way around a woman's body. And I just feel like from a very young age, there's a lot of shame associated with sex and pleasure for women, also men too, but like just things that are natural. Like when you're going through puberty and, you're like, you can't really always control your thoughts. And you're told to basically just like put those thoughts aside, like don't think about them, don't engage with them. And then when you get married, you're just supposed to be like, it's just like a switch. It's just like you get married and there's a switch that's supposed to go off. And that's just not how the human body and human mind work in my experience. So I thought that was really interesting how she was like, I've never had an orgasm, and she has been married for a while and has 2 children. It's like, well, why? Like there must be some type of like shame around that, or why hasn't she felt comfortable asking her husband to like try different things? Like, I don't know. I thought that was very interesting and kind of like triggered a little thing for me as well, where it's like, oh, okay, like I feel like that's very relatable and probably a lot of people can relate to what she her experience, you know? Okay, let's talk about Whitney now. So I know a lot of people have strong opinions about Whitney. I actually think she's okay. There were definitely times in the episode where felt like I feel like she's just kind of jealous of Taylor. I don't think she's like this villain that everyone makes her out to be. Like every show has to have a villain, and like obviously it's Whitney in this show. But I don't feel like it was as bad as people kind of make it out to seem. Like yeah, maybe she did some things that made her kind of like a shitty friend. Maybe she is jealous of Taylor, wants to be the leader of the group, but I don't feel like it's necessarily fair the way that social media has just been like completely ripping her to shreds. Not a fan of the TikTok video that she did with her baby in the NICU, but like, guys, when you're looking at someone's content online, like you're seeing just a small little snippet of their life, and maybe it was in poor taste, but it sounded like they had just gotten some really good news about their child, and her content is doing TikTok dances. Like, I don't know. I'm not saying it was right, but I'm just saying like there's context to everything. And so I'm just going to give her the benefit of the doubt. I do want to talk about a little bit about her husband and how he was cheating on her or having like these relationships with people online through their whole relationship or their whole marriage. I really hope that if Whitney is on the next season, which I've heard rumors that she does not want to be on season 2, but I'm kind of curious because I've heard some things on social media, and who knows if it's true, that it wasn't actually Tinder, that it was Grindr. And this just makes me, if that is true, it just makes me so sad because, oh my God, I don't want to cry. But it just makes me so sad because there are so many people in the church who are part of the LGBTQ community, and they are not treated and accepted in the way that they should be as human beings. They're basically told that everyone has different sets of challenges in their life, and this is like their life challenge. And they either have like two choices. They just like get married to a woman or a man, like vice versa, or you just have a celibate life forever. Like you are told that you do not act on your sexual desires if you're attracted to the same sex, because you can't hold a temple recommend. And they recently came out with a policy that basically was putting people of that nature, like the trans community, into like the same buckets as sexual predators. People who have been convicted of a sex crime can't hold certain positions in the church, and like they put trans people into that same bucket. And so there's just like, so it was a little triggering to me, not triggering, but like, it just felt like it just made me sad because I really hope that's not what's going on for them, only because he is obviously committed to this life with Whitney. They've gotten married in the temple. They have these beautiful children. They have a family. And when you are told by religion to live a certain way, even though that's not authentic to you, I feel like at some point it's going to catch up to you. You're not just ruining your life, but you're also ruining the lives of people who are around you, like your spouse, your children. Like, how traumatic for like children or a spouse to have to go through that, because eventually it's going to catch up to them. Like, you can't just lie your entire life and say that you are in this heterosexual relationship when you don't want to be, or you're not attracted to that. You can't lie to yourself. And I think that that's one thing that was really sad for me watching on the show. I think that we should, as a people, have a lot of compassion towards individuals who are stuck in like that type of position, because if you don't understand the culture of the church, like I know people who have literally been disowned from their family, kicked out as teenagers from their family home because they came out as gay. I'm not saying that's everyone's experience. Obviously, like there's a lot of people who welcome their children being gay, but I would say you're not treated as an equal, and with that comes a lot of shame. And so that really just made me really sad. So I don't know. That's their story to tell. I don't know. It just like kind of got me thinking, and it's just, I just want everyone to be able to live the way that they want to live, right? And like not be told that they can't love who they want to love, like if they are attracted to that type of person. Okay, I'm rambling. Okay, I want to talk about going back to like Taylor. I want to talk about like people's relationships. So I am really rooting for Taylor and Dakota. Now, I know that Dakota was also kind of painted as a villain in the show. They definitely have like their sets of issues with trust, Taylor's history, Dakota's history, like all of this stuff. but I'm actually really rooting for them. And I just think that sometimes as a society, it's so easy to like nitpick everyone's relationship and things that are going on and things that look like they're red flags. But honestly, at the end of the day, like it's her life to live and she gets to choose what's right for her. And I'm rooting for them. And if it ends up that it doesn't work out for them, like I'm still rooting for both of them and whatever makes them happy. As someone who is in a relationship with her ex-husband right now, I'm speaking about myself. I know how complicated relationships are. And just because someone does something that makes you not trust them, doesn't mean that trust can't be rebuilt. I thought I would never be the one to say that, but I'm here to say like that can happen if you put in the work. So I'm rooting for them. Okay, I want to talk about the soda shop. So I've gotten so many questions about the soda shops. Guys, the soda shops are very much a thing in Utah, and I love it. I love me Diet Coke with coconut cream. They call it a dirty diet, I think a dirty Diet Coke. I don't know, but it is so good. I have a Quench It just right up the street from me. It is my vice. I don't go there every day, but like I love Diet Coke, just like a crisp Diet Coke. They're 44 ounces, but like most of that is ice. So they're getting a lot of shit for like, oh, you don't drink coffee, but you're drinking like 44 ounces of soda. It's not a 44-ounce soda. Like more than half of it is ice. Okay, so whatever. Anyway, but I'm all about it. I'll give a little bit of like a backstory here. So like people have asked me, why are soda shops so popular in Utah? Like this isn't really a thing anywhere else. So Mormons can't drink coffee or tea. So there was like a doctrine forever ago. Like I don't know exactly like where it originated, but basically it said something about how you can't drink hot drinks. Probably back when this was written, there was no such thing as soda. It was like, okay, coffee and tea are like hot drinks. Since then, there's been really no clarification that I'm aware of saying like it's not, you can't drink caffeine. I'm sure that's probably why it was written that way, is that you can't have caffeine, because coffee and tea were probably the only drinks at the time that had caffeine. But now we have all these other options. We have soda, we have energy drinks. And so there's been no clarification. And so people just love soda. Like soda's delicious. They treat it like it's their coffee. I mean, whatever. I don't have any judgment against that. It's like, I'm not going to judge you for drinking your soda, energy drinks, because probably not the best for you. Like I also love soda, but like it's probably not very good. And I know that, but like, don't judge me for going to Starbucks and like drinking coffee. Okay. Because that's not really fair. Let's see. Okay. The other thing that I thought was so funny was when the girl, I can't remember who it was in the episodes, but they were getting Botox and they got laughing gas while they were getting Botox. I was like, what the hell is this? Like, who is getting laughing gas when you're getting Botox? I've gotten Botox, I've gotten filler in Utah, and I have never been offered. I didn't even know that was something you could get. I put it to an Instagram poll. Most people said like it's not a thing, but it's obviously wherever they went, they got it and it was fine. But like I feel like this is one of like those oh so Mormon moments where it's like we can't drink, we can't do drugs, we can't drink even coffee. So we're gonna get some laughing gas when we go and get Botox just because that's like the only thing that we can have. So they call Utah County Happy Valley for a reason. And I feel like Mormons are always just trying to kind of find like a backwards way of doing something that they're not really supposed to do, but it's not like written in that way. Here's another example. They kind of talked about this in the episode. And I was going to talk about this and then I forgot, but about like having sex before marriage. Like you're not supposed to have sex before marriage in the Mormon church, but a lot of time what people will do is they'll do the soaking. I can't even imagine this is like a real thing. Like this has to be a rumor. They'll like put it in, and then like just sit there, not like pulse their body. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see my hands doing the motion. I probably should stop. I don't want to get a violation. But so they're not like doing the movements, and then one of their friends will shake the bed so it like moves their body so that the guy can ejaculate. I'm like dying because it's like, is that like, come on guys, like are people really doing that at BYU? Like it's like if you do that, you're still having sex. It doesn't matter if your friend is the one who's shaking the bed. But another thing that people will apparently do is that they'll put it in a different hole, if you know what I mean, and they'll say that's not sex. They'll do everything except like actual like vaginal intercourse basically. And so they're just always like, there's so many people who like just try to find like these backwards ways to like remain worthy in the church, but they're I mean, if you think about it logically, it's like, okay, that's not okay. Like, it doesn't matter if your friend is shaking the bed or if you're like just moving your body. Like, isn't it just the same thing? I don't know. It's so funny, but I was just dying. But the laughing gas with Botox, that's not a normal thing. It's not a normal thing. Like, I think it can happen, but it's not like everyone out there who's getting Botox is like getting laughing gas. So I also want to talk about Zach and Jen really quick. So I'm not going to judge their relationship. Like, someone like these people are on TV, there's editing that goes behind like before the shows are released. They're both also so young. They got married really young. And like, if you understand the Utah culture, you actually know that Zach is a very typical Utah Mormon boy. And I'm not like, he needs to take accountability for his actions and needs to learn healthier ways to have a relationship with his wife. But if you understand the way that a lot of people are raised in Utah, like it kind of makes sense. So, and also to say, like, he's young, they're both young, they need to figure it out. I mean, they grew up in the Utah bubble. Like, this is a very, I would say, very typical Utah Mormon young couple. If you understand like the church and the way that you're raised in the church, I mean, like the man is the head of household. It doesn't matter. Like, women are not that they're not equals, but it's very clear that a woman's role is in the home. And actually, don't quote me on this, but I feel like there was a prophet who said that like women should only work outside the home if like absolutely necessary in order to live, but their primary role is within the home, raising kids and being like a stay-at-home mom. And that's very typical. There were a lot of double standards. Obviously, that happened in Vegas where Jen didn't know they were going to Chippendales, and then she left and he was saying some really horrible things to her that's like very abusive, while he's also gambling, because gambling is not allowed in the church. Like, you're not supposed to gamble. I don't know if it's enough where you can't like have a temple recommend, but you're not supposed to gamble. Like, gambling is not allowed in the church. So I just thought it was interesting how you could see those double standards, and I do feel like there are a lot of double standards in the way that relationships happen in the church, generally speaking, of course, but just growing up in that way, like, women are just not, it's just crazy. Anyway, I don't think I'm trying to be cautious with how I'm explaining things because I don't want to offend anyone. I obviously live in Utah and have a lot of Mormon friends, which I totally support. My family's Mormon, so I try to be respectful. So I hope that makes sense, but I am trying to be a little cautious and careful the way that I phrase things just for that reason. But yeah, I'm kind of curious. Like, I think that I'm not judging his gambling or anything like that. Like, I personally don't care, but I don't feel like it's fair for him to come at Jen and say the things that he was saying to her when he has his own shit going on that he's trying to work through, maybe not trying to work through. It didn't seem like he was trying to work through it, whatever. But yeah, and then I also didn't like, I think it was the last episode when Jen was talking to him about maybe taking a year off of before going into medical school or like his residency, or like, I don't know where he's at in his education wise for medical school. But she suggested to take a year off because she's going to miss out on a lot of business opportunities for Mom Talk. And then his response was that he said, I don't care. Obviously, like, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt as well. There was probably a lot of editing that went because it just like kind of cut off after he said, I don't care. So I'm sure that there was more to the story there, but that was also very triggering because, again, in the Mormon religion, I mean, the man is the head of household. Woman is told when you are getting married in the temple, and if you get married by a bishop, me and Cody got married by a bishop, they have to say certain things. Like, the woman is supposed to cleave to the husband, and the husband is the one who like has that like relationship with God. And so a woman's career always comes second. Like, it always does. And obviously, like, Jen is a very successful influencer. She has millions of followers. She's probably making more money than he will ever make as a doctor. But again, her career is coming second. Her primary role seems like it is with the children. And that was a little triggering to me as well as an ex-Mormon. The other thing I want to talk about before we move on, some of the girls were uninvited to a baby blessing because they weren't Mormon enough. And that was very triggering for me as well as an ex-Mormon. Just kind of like brought me back to my childhood when I felt excluded from certain activities, or my family went through really traumatic event with my parents' divorce, and like things just changed. And then like, you know, I have a brother who's gay, and that was really hard. So like there was a lot of things that happened in my childhood, and I felt like a lot of times like I was excluded from certain things, or like if I wore a tank top, I felt like people were judging me, or I went through a really defiant phase and, you know, dyed my hair black, and I was a little rebellious, and I just never felt fully accepted by the church for who I was as a person. And I really felt that when those girls were uninvited because they weren't Mormon enough. Like that was really like, it kind of hurt me to see that happen, because like I know how that feels and it freaking sucks. I will say that I don't feel like it's like that anymore. Like as an adult, obviously, like I still live in Utah. Like most people are Mormon in my neighborhood. I don't feel excluded from those things now. So I do feel like that culture has changed in some ways, but it's still there. So interesting. Okay, guys, we're going to go ahead and move on, because I have talked about Mormon wives for far too long. This will probably also be the last episode I talk about it, because I know I'm probably just beating a dead horse by talking about it so much. Okay, but I want to get into your submissions for what you didn't sign up for this week. So I'm just going to read these and then I'm going to respond. Okay, the first one is frequent overstimulation. I feel this one so hard. I never felt overstimulated from what I remember before I had kids. And it is definitely one of those things that I didn't sign up for. No one talked about. I feel like people are starting to talk about it now, but it is a very real thing. Like when you have the TV on and a kid is screaming and your dog is barking and you're trying to cook dinner and all of the things are going through your mind at once, like I'm going to snap. I'm going to snap. Like the overstimulation, there's just like so much things going on. And like, I have never appreciated silence more now than ever. Like, I understand why my parents didn't really listen to the radio in the car. Like my stepdad never listened to music in the car. And I always thought it was so weird. And now I get it. So I feel you on that one. That one is tough. Okay. Hearing other people's opinions about my parenting, especially from my mother-in-law. Okay, so my mother-in-law, it's actually Cody's aunt, and she is amazing. I got really lucky with her where she is truly the best. I feel like I can just call her and ask her for anything. I don't feel like she's judgmental. So I feel like I really scored, but I have heard some horror stories about mother-in-laws. So I'm so sorry about that. As far as like hearing other people's opinions about parenting, I 100% feel that. It's so frustrating and annoying when, especially if you're just like venting about something with motherhood, or you're like, this thing is really hard, or I'm struggling. And then people just like will judge you, start throwing out like, do this, do that. This is what I did. And everything was perfect. And, or just like minimizing it and having like that toxic positivity where it's like, just be happy, just be grateful that you have a child. A lot of people don't have children and wish they could, like stuff like that. It's like, that's not helpful. Like, just let me live. Like also like everyone parents a little differently, and that's okay. So I feel you. And I'm sorry that's coming from your mother-in-law, and hopefully your partner can set some boundaries. I do feel like it's the responsibility of the child of whoever. So like your partner, it would be your partner's responsibility to set those boundaries with his parents or her parents, whatever. It's not your responsibility, but you can also set boundaries, but it's mainly theirs. Okay. This one is so there was a couple that were like kind of in the same realm, but being the sole keeper of all the information it takes to keep our family moving. We've tried shared calendars and delegation, but it's been a process. I find myself feeling sensitive to other people outside of my family asking questions about school events, activities. I'm not Google. Okay, I feel this. The mental load is one of those things that like I definitely did not sign up for before becoming a parent. I had no idea the amount of information and things that you would have to know all times in order to keep your family moving. It does usually feel like it falls on one parent's shoulders to just like keep all of the information. Cody and I have done the same where we have a shared calendar, do our weekly meeting where we talk about who's doing pickup and drop offs and what activities and like events we have to kind of ease that load. But I do feel like a lot of it still does fall on me personally. And it's something that we're still working through. We have come a really long way from a few years back, but it's a process. Like there's just a lot of information to remember as a parent. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, like a situation. We just had pajama day that I totally forgot about, but it's just like one of those things where even though it was both of our faults for not reading the emails, because he gets the emails from the school too, it just like affected me more. I'm like, I feel like this is a reflection of me as a parent. I don't feel like anyone would judge you as a dad for forgetting pajama day, but I do feel like I would get judged as a mom for forgetting pajama day, like, oh, what a bad mom. Also, another thing is we forgot my daughters. We didn't forget, actually. We lost my younger daughter's glasses and it was frantically looking for them right before I was supposed to take her to preschool today. Couldn't find them. I feel bad because I called Cody and I was like totally raging on him, which isn't fair to him. But I was like, he put them to bed last night. And I'm like, you didn't put them where they normally go, where the glasses normally go at night. And so I got mad at him for that. But just like, that's just another example of just like a small thing that like I have in my brain, like this is where the glasses go so that we don't lose them the night before. And then when that doesn't happen, it's like, now it's on me because I'm the one who takes her to preschool because I have the more flexible job. And it's just like a thing. I get it. Moving on. Being too burned out for bedtime. I feel that bedtime is the hardest time of day. It's kind of a tie actually between bedtime and like getting the kids out the door for school. Like both are super stressful. But I feel like at the end of the night when it is bedtime, like you're just tired. I don't know about you guys, but I am an early bird. I don't like staying up late and I just get so freaking tired by 8:00. I feel like I'm dead. And so when my kids are battling bedtime or they're acting crazy or acting silly, like my patience is like this, like tiny, like razor thin, like I'm about to snap, like get the freaking bed, go to sleep. So I get that, especially if you're like trying to do sleep training. Or there was a time my youngest daughter just started sleeping in her own bed and like 6 months ago, I would have to lay in her bed, her floor almost every single night in order for her to sleep in her own bed. And it was so exhausting. Okay. I'll share a couple more and then we will wrap up. Okay. Being overstimulated. So this is also stimulation by my 11-month-old, having blowouts every single morning when he wakes up and I have to shower him as I'm trying to get myself, him, and my 3-year-old out the house on time for daycare and work. Yeah. Yep. I do not miss the days of diapers. Thank God my kids are not in diapers anymore. We're struggling a little bit with night bedwetting, but I do not miss diapers. I do not miss blowouts. I do not miss those baby poos that are like, you guys know what type of poop I'm talking about, the breastfeeding poop or formula poop. It was like, I am so glad that I'm over that. And you know what? One thing I would say, I obviously don't know this person and like their situation. Everyone's situation's different, but like, I hope you have help from a partner in the morning. If you don't, then like, bless you. Just know you're in survival mode and just do the best that you can and know that it's going to pass and you're a great mom. And but the overstimulation and getting out the door with kids and trying to be on time is so stressful. And for me, I feel like no matter how much I prepare the night before, literally always a shit show. My kids are 4 and 6. She's almost 7 and it's still such a struggle. Okay, well, that is all I'm going to share for this week because I have to go pick up my 4-year-old from preschool. She gets out in a minute. So I am going to go head over there and pick her up. But please rate and review the podcast. It really helps me a lot. If you're enjoying the podcast, please subscribe or follow. Go and follow me and subscribe over on YouTube as well. I think I'm getting about 40 views per YouTube video over there. So go and give me a follow. You can also watch me while I'm talking. Apparently people like doing that. So that's fun. But yeah, we will talk next week. Bye.